What's going on, guys? Cameron here is Canadian Gamer. This is a fun little episode. This is one I've been meaning to do for a while, and today's the day I'm going to do it. And what caused me to do this video this weekend? Well, my good buddy Ken's Games Collection, he recently posted a video and he talked a little bit about how he picked up the re-release for Grim Fandango, and he was really excited about that, and that sort of light bulb went off in my head. I'm a huge fan of the point and click genre, especially those older games from the 90s. And so what I'm going to do here before I really get into the video, I'm just going to rhyme off a few games, and I hope to elicit a reaction. And maybe some of these games, maybe one of these games, it'll go off in your head. Maybe you forgot about it and it's one that you used to play back when you were either younger, or maybe for all you older gamers out there, maybe you were a little bit younger in the 80s and 90s and you remember these games. So here it goes. Sam & Max Hits the Road, King's Quest, Flight of the Amazon Queen, Cruise for a Corpse, Leisure Suit Larry, Sanitarium, Discworld, Gabriel Knight, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Loom, Monkey Island, Blade Runner, The Dig, Beneath a Steel Sky, The Longest Journey, Maniac Mansion, Siberia, Full Throttle, Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango, Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbender, Lure of the Temptress, Thimbleweed Park. So as you can see, the list goes on. I could go on for days, but those are some of the most popular titles of the late 80s throughout the early to mid 90s. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with these games, and then we'll open it up for discussion in the comments below. Again, just some housekeeping notes as usual. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. As I get to be this elderly age, approaching 37 years old, I don't have the best memory anymore, and I have to keep notes. So, without further ado, how are we doing for time? We're doing good. So when I got introduced to video games, that was obviously the tail end of the 80s. I had the NES, and then early 90s I got the Super NES. The rest is history. Now the thing is, my family, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. We didn't even have a computer. A lot of families didn't have a computer until basically 94, 95, 96. Our family was no exception. We got our first computer towards the end of 1995, and the computer we had was called a Packard Bell. I don't remember the exact model number, but it was a Pentium 75. So back in the days, that was like the weakest computer you could possibly purchase. It came with a pack-in game, which was Myst. Now, I do want to preface this. I'm not really focusing on the Myst style of games in this video. I'm going to hold off and do that on another video. This one here is more the side-scrolling type of point-and-click adventure games. So, the Packard Bell computer, it wasn't a powerhouse. There was plenty of games that I purchased that I couldn't run on the computer. You have to remember, at this point, a lot of the games were still on the floppy, the 3.5-inch floppy diskettes. So it was a real interesting time. And Myst was one of the first games that was, I think it may have been the first game that was a CD-ROM based game. So anyways, we got the computer. I didn't have a lot of games for it. However, going to school, we moved up to the Ottawa region in 95, and I grew up prior to that in the Niagara region. Now, if you guys have ever been towards Ottawa, you're right on the cusp of the Quebec border. So in school, they have what's called French immersion, and some of in public school, you'd have a class where it was all French. The teacher would speak French, and everybody in the class spoke French. I didn't speak French, so I got exempted from that class along with another kid. And what we did for the hour is basically the teacher told us to sit at the computer out in the hallway and just, I guess, play around with the computer, get used to the software. You know, they expected us to do things that were educational. They had a lot of educational games on there. They had that one game there, what was it called? The Oregon Trail? Now, one game that was on the computer, I'm not quite sure. I can't remember if it was the kid that put it on there. He put on there Simon the Sorcerer. Now, I had never seen a game like this before. Again, all I ever had up until this point was Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, all of the games that you would get on the console. And then I see this game, Simon the Sorcerer, and again, I'm only 12, 13 years old. Completely blew my mind. Now, I have to say something. I'm very much the mindset of an artistic mindset. If you show me Simon the Sorcerer and you're showing me Donkey Kong Country, I'll gravitate towards Simon the Sorcerer. I love those point-and-click adventures that make you use your head. Pixel hunting is what they would call it back in the day. And story-driven narratives, the choices, you know, being able to pick up something and use it with another object to advance the plot. I was blown away by Simon the Sorcerer. I had never seen anything like it. At this point, we were playing this game without voiceovers. I don't know if that game ever had voiceovers. And it was like 256 color, what they call VGA graphics at the time. So anyways, this game blew my mind. And then later on, around 1996, back in the day, we could go to the dollar store. I think Darius might know a little bit about this. Go to the dollar store in Canada, and they'd have, again, these they call them 3.5, kind of like a floppy disk drive that you'd put in the computer. And a lot of them were made by, or produced by a company called Apogee, which a lot of you guys probably remember from Duke Nukem 3D. One of the games that I picked up at the dollar store was called Hugo, and it was like a 3-pack. It was like Hugo's House of Horrors, Hugo, I don't know, he's on a tropical island, and there was a third one as well. Anyways, those games were really good at the time. I had a lot of fun playing the Hugo games, even though they were kind of knockoffs of a lot of the other games that you guys are familiar with. Maniac Mansion is one of them. Fast forward to later on in 96, my father's working at Kmart at the time. I used to go into Kmart all the time with my family. And the big box PC games, like the ones you see in MJR's videos, we used to see those in the bargain bin all the time. And I remember I picked up these games by a company called Microprose. Now these games, again, if you guys ever see these games, I think you can download them, on GOG.com for free. Dragon Sphere and Return of the Phantom, especially Return of the Phantom. Oh my god. Just look at that cover art. This game, I know you guys probably think I sound crazy. This game was amazing. It was starring this guy, I think his name was Raul, and he was basically a detective, and the game revolves around, obviously, the play The Phantom of the Opera, but something goes terribly wrong, and somebody gets murdered, and there's a guy wearing a Phantom of the Opera mask, and he's running around, and you have to chase him. Then later on in the game, you get into like the catacombs underneath the theater, and you're chasing after this guy, and it has awesome voiceovers. This game is so good. After I post this video, I might have to download that game if I can, and play it tonight. Dragon Sphere is another one. Very much like Return of the Phantom. Just a fantastic story. I had so much fun playing those games. Later on, again, still around 1996, I was buying PC Gamer magazines. And one game that caught my eye was called Circle of Blood. Now, over in Europe, it's called Broken Sword. The first game in the series over in North America, I think they did this to appease the appeal to the North American audience. They called it Circle of Blood. Now, this game, well, fuck it. Take a look at this.
Paris in the fall, the last months of the year and the end of the millennium. The city holds many memories for me, of cafes, of music, of love, and of death. myself up, all I could hear was the ceaseless drone of traffic. Life went on around me. But the explosion was to change my life forever.
Just a memorable introduction. Who can forget that introduction? Just incredible. So obviously, you guys know the story. You know, the game stars George Stobart, an American patent lawyer, and he's on vacation, and he's in Paris, and obviously he's just having a latte outside of this bistro restaurant, and the bomb goes off, and then he meets up with Nico Collard, a French freelance journalist, and the rest is history. So it's just an amazing game. Revolution Software. What else can be said about Revolution Software? They did such a good job with this series. I'm a huge fan. I think there's only one game in the series that was only released on PC. Might have been the third game in the series. Never actually played that one. I have all the other ones, though. I've got the one that came out on the original Xbox, and then obviously the fifth entry, which came out in 2013. I got a physical copy of that I ordered from the UK. So that, in my eyes, that's the pinnacle for me. The artwork, the presentation, the music, and even the actors, the voice actors in Circle of Blood and Broken Sword, especially the first two games, which I've recently replayed. I downloaded them on GOG Games, and I played them on my laptop, at night, just sort of sitting there on my bed with the laptop on my chest, if you will, and you just play there with the mouse. So just an awesome series, and I hold it near and dear to my heart. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're talking if you're talking about the point and click genre, that's the best in my opinion. There's a lot of games, especially at the beginning of the video, that I mentioned that I never actually played. There's just so many of them. Yeah, so later on, towards the later half of the 90s, closer to the 2000s, we really weren't playing these games as much. A lot of us sort of, walked away from this genre, if you will, as the emergence of the 3D shooters began to take form. So that was kind of unfortunate. I don't know a lot about a lot of these point and click games that came out in the 2000s. Like I said, kind of like mid 2000s, we had The Longest Journey, which some would say that's the greatest point and click adventure game of all time as well. And like I said, Grim Fandango, never actually played that one, believe it or not. Ken says that wasn't a game that was really popular when it came out, kind of flopped. I thought it had done good when it came out. I guess I'm mistaken. My computer we had, the family computer, was not powerful enough to run Grim Fandango. I remember I got a PC Gamer demo disc, and Grim Fandango was on it. And I tried my damnedest to boot that game up, and no go. I couldn't play it. And now with the re-release, it's not on the Xbox, unfortunately. So who knows? Time will tell if that comes out. It would be cool to see Full Throttle on the Xbox as well. Excuse me, because that's another one I never played. So yeah, as you can see, these games, they're kind of making a bit of a comeback. I've got Thimbleweed Park here. This came out a couple of years ago. And it's fantastic. It's a true return to form, kind of like those old LucasArts games. And I actually played that one all the way through. Yes, I used a walkthrough, unfortunately, because those games are so hard. And like I said, a lot of these other games that I mentioned earlier, Gabriel Knight, that's a fantastic game. It's done by Sierra. And again, awesome music, incredible story. Again, Flight of the Amazon Queen, Forgotten Diamond for sure. Loom, Monkey Island is again another one of my favorites from my childhood. Blade Runner, the point and click game, a lot of people don't know this. That's an incredible point and click game. It's like a sequel to the movie, and it's pretty incredible. The Dig, I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg has something to do with The Dig. I'm pretty sure he was heavily involved with that game, with the making of that game. Again, Beneath a Steel Sky, done by Revolution Software. Believe it or not, there's a sequel coming out. Looking forward to that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm just going to show a few games that I have in my collection. Now, the thing is, the tough thing about this genre is it's hard to sit in front of a computer these days and play these types of games. But it's easier to use a mouse with these type of games than to try to use your controller if you're playing these on one of the consoles. So pick your poison. So I got Escape from Monkey Island on the PlayStation 2. Awesome game. I think this is the third in the series. Can't recommend it enough. I haven't beaten it yet, but I have gotten pretty far. Awesome game. Budget release on the original Xbox, Still Life. This one is really good as well. It's kind of like a murder mystery. There is a sequel as well that came out on Nintendo Wii, I believe. But Still Life, if you see it out there, I highly recommend it. Obviously, I've got Siberia 1 and 2, and I've got the third one on the Xbox One. Siberia is a great series. And again, this one only came out on the original Xbox. I don't believe this was on the PS2. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is Broken Sword, The Sleeping Dragon. So this one here, I haven't actually gotten too far into it. I need to go back and play this one. This is where Revolution kind of got away from the hand-drawn sprites and went towards the kind of the 3D graphics, but it works well in this game. On the 5th release, Revolution went back to their roots and did the hand-drawn characters, and I really appreciate that as well. I know in the comments here, a lot of you guys chimed in on my video I posted earlier today asking for your feedback on this type of genre. Mick Hero mentioned playing Monkey Island 2 as a child with his neighbor, having a lot of fun trying to figure out those puzzles. Exactly. Playing these games, I found like it would really trigger something in my brain when you work really hard to figure out a puzzle and then you finally get it. And man, the sense of accomplishment was just out of this world. So, like I said, I really enjoy these games. I really hope we start to see more and more of these games come back. I know a lot of these games are cult classics for a reason, and I know a lot of you guys enjoy these games just as much as I do. So like I said, if you get a chance to go on to GOG.com, they have a lot of these games that you can at least play on a modern console, or on a modern computer, excuse me. So that's pretty much going to do it. That's all I wanted to say with regards to these games. Like I said, very much a lot of memories stemming from the 90s when you're talking about this genre. And I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What are your favorite games from the point-and-click genre? And again, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. Have a great day.